How we going, folks? Well, I'll go from one garden to the other. That's what I do here. From the orchard to the citrus trees to the veggie garden, out into the ornamental, and down to this little section here. This is where I had my leeks growing, and they've all gone to seed. I'll show you down there. This is all weedy stuff here. Don't look at this stuff. I'm going to clean it all up. See over here, I left four plants in. They're going to seed up here, so I'm going to keep this so I can collect my seed and plant them again next summer, next winter, whenever I get a chance to. You could grow them all year round, these things here. What we're going to do here with this bed here, and I found what happened with these leeks is they weren't getting enough moisture. And that was the same problem with all the garden beds, but we've managed to fix it on the larger ones, but I didn't touch this one. I started to, and I thought, no, I can't turn it over, because the biggest problem I had was existing root system, like the leeks in the ground, and trying to pull these weeds out wasn't an easy task without disturbing the roots of your plant. So the message today, I suppose today's little topic, is basically weeding with care. So if you've got existing plants, especially annual plants, even perennial plants, and there are weeds around them and you need to weed with them, you can get yourself a little scratcher like that if you like. This is a great little tool. I got this one from your local garage sale. Look at that. I don't even have to bend over anymore. Now this bed here, as I mentioned earlier, the problem I had was runoff, because it's mounded up in the middle and it tapers off on the sides there. Every time I try to hydrate, especially for the leeks, they weren't getting enough moisture or retaining enough moisture. Yet, no mulch either, because we had this infestation of weeds coming through. Get rid of your weeds. That's the first and foremost. If you can't dig them all out, smother them, cover them over if you can, if you have to. That's the worst case scenario, like I did with the raised beds over there. So if you've got a garden where you physically can't remove every single weed and dig it out by hand, well, you may have to lay a bit of plastic down and build the garden bed on top of that. That's the last sort of choice you have there. Or the other one is actually physically dig it out, get as much of it out of as possible, mulch it down and cover it heavily with mulch, because that will suppress the weeds. These beds here, I didn't dig them out. I removed all the weeds as best I could, and I dug a trench around the edge. You can see there's grass growing inside here, trying to get its way back into it. Some of it's sneaking in there, but it has slowed it down. And then I put a heap of mulch on top, and I do get the occasional grassy weed going through out like that, or your straw germinating. But generally speaking, everything's really doing well. It's so little in the maintenance. Some of these plants have bolted because of the hot weather, because cabbages don't like the hot weather and they jumped around too quick for me. But overall, they're doing well. I'm going to show you a quick one now, where we dug it all out and physically tried to remove every single weed. This garden bed was infested, or still is, even though you can't see it, cooch and kikuyu growing through it. Look at this, you know, hours on end pulling this stuff out, and there's still a heap of it in the ground. All this, oh look at it, all this is still going to grow. So this is the dilemma I have with this particular quarter of these this little private garden we have going on here. Now, in the other beds, you would have seen in recent times my tomatoes, capsicums, cucumbers, and whatever I planted in there. We've got some silver beet and, some sage. We've got some sage growing in there, and a citrus tree in each one in the middle there. And I want to plant one in here too. But the dilemma I've got is that even if I try to plant in here and just put compost down and mulch, there is no way I'm going to be able to stop this from growing back and taking over again. Now, it hasn't creeped over into the other garden beds, I'm lucky enough, but in here it did. We lost all this English box, all these gaps here. This is Krishna's trick. He walked in through here, barged through here, destroyed this little patch, started munching away at all the strawberries because it was a strawberry patch, and it ended up becoming a nightmare of a weed-infested garden. So the options are to do exactly what I did with the raised garden beds over there. It's going to look maybe a little bit odd, but I'm going to have to lay some plastic down or a geotech material to stop the grass from growing back and filling in between the beds. Your best way to suppress weeds when they're not fully overtaking your garden bed is by having a lot of existing plants in there, or large plants, evergreen plants. So you can have your pig face growing in there, you can have correas, these are flowering plants obviously, dioides, you can have hebes and nandinas, the list goes on. mass plant, fill up all the gaps, and that slows down the growth and the possibility of weeds taking over that garden bed, because these larger plants will fill in the gaps and create that shade environment. Now, I'm not going to do that here. What I do want to plant here are herbs, perennial plants, and some vegetables as well. So I'm always going to have gaps. So I am going to lay some sort of material down at the base, do my research on that, and I'll let you know what it is. You're going to see me doing it anyway. And eventually, maybe even put one row of timber around this, so I can build in a raised bed and fill it up with about 150, 200 mil of composted soil. It's not going to be as high as the other beds, but I want to separate that or this garden bed from what's going on underneath. And hopefully over time I can remove the timber if I've killed off the grass underneath over a year or 2 years. I'm up for the challenge. We got rid of the hard part. Now it's the fun part. How good's that weeping cherry tree? Even though it's only the one side, still a beautiful sight, especially on a nice sunny day like today. And that little orange tree, if you remember it, check it out on our previous post we had on Facebook. Look it up, how to green up a citrus tree. That was completely yellow, and you can see the green colours coming back into a little bit of EcoBoost liquid gold and a warm weather and a good water. It starts to bring it back to life, and that's what you do with all your citrus trees. Now, if you're looking for some great products, go to our website, Vasili'sGarden.com. Like our page, Facebook page, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your daily feeds. From me, Vasili, Maresi.